Okay, I'm doing a bit of a deep dive into a great guitar instrumental called Sleepwalk. Okay, and Sleepwalk was first recorded the year I was born, 1959, an instrumental by American instrumental rock and roll duo Santo and Johnny Farina, with their Uncle Mike D playing the drums. Okay, it's a trio, prominently featuring steel guitar. The song was recorded at Trinity Music in New York City and entered the top 40 August 17, 1959. Okay, 3 days after I was born, this song enters the charts and stayed there for a good while, and reached number 4 on the R&B chart. And it was the very last instrumental to hit number 1 in the 1950s. Got a gold record. Also reached number 3 in Canada. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, these kids were encouraged to play music by their dad. Like Frank Zappa, they had a webcore tape recorder the dad gave them, and they came up with this tune. So this is an original piece of music, and Johnny thought it was a good piece. They made a demo, and off it went. Okay, now this song has been covered by a pile of people. Okay, this song has been covered by a pile of people. I'm trying to trace as many versions of it as I can. Okay, I found a couple of versions that had singers on them, one with a female singer, and there were like just violins and stuff. It was awful. It sounded like a soap commercial. But as far as the instrumentals are concerned, so there's the original Santo and Johnny version, okay, 1959. And then shortly thereafter, there's a cover by the American band The Ventures, okay, of Walk, Don't Run fame and stuff. Surf music, the dawn of surf music, in some ways might be traced to Santo and Johnny. The Ventures do a version of it that is pretty much as good as a cover band could play it, and they had a bass player, of course. And with the Ventures, here's the cool thing with the Ventures. I don't know if this ever occurred to anybody else, but when I made the connection between the sliding and bending of notes that can be done with a guitar as well as a trombone, okay? In other words, I got past the mechanics of the instrument to just the bending of notes, okay? And sustaining of notes and pinching off of notes and things. It's real similar with both instruments. When that dawned on me many years ago, all of a sudden I understood why nobody understood my guitar playing, because there wasn't really a point of reference for other people to hook into it. It was something else. My wife said before we met, she asked a friend of mine, is his guitar supposed to sound like that? Oh, God. Okay, so anyways, the Ventures do a cover of it, and it goes well for them. Then the Brits, okay, the Shadows, right? Hank Marvin, I believe, was the guitarist in that band. A year later, record a version of it, and it was right about there that I realized, got it. They didn't have any kind of pedal or lap steel player in either of these groups, the Ventures or the Shadows, but they did have this new piece of technology that I think even predates the fuzz pedal, and that would be, of course, the tremolo bar or the whammy bar, right, or the Bigsby, as some people refer to them. Okay, I have Peter's G and B palm pedal string benders on my Telecaster that I've been just continually, I love the thing, and I just want to get it to the place it seems to want to get to in order to be able to play music as I hear it. And so, old instrumental music for me and country music with slide and pedal guitars in it, and also the acoustic music that comes out of the slave states, with people even playing, a single string from a nail in a door down to the ground, played with a bottle or something. These sliding notes and staccato notes. Instruments that can produce that sound they go way back. Okay, so Sleepwalk for me, it's great. It's a beautiful melody, and the chord changes in it have been copied by 100 people over the years in ways into their songs, and it's just a great chord progression. It's lovely. It's both hopeful and sad at the same time. The Shadows and the Ventures displace the use of a slide and use the tremolo bar in order to accomplish some of those cool sounds that were happening in the original single, Santo and Johnny Farina's, right? Okay, let's see here. I found a version by a group called the Lettermen. It had singing on it, so I only grabbed a tiny clip of it, but the intro is pretty cool. And later, when I heard a Joe Satriani version of it, I thought to myself, I'll bet you Joe Satriani has heard the beginning of that Letterman version. And he thought, that's the only cool part in the song. I'm going to do something like that. Let's see here. In 1982, Larry Carlton, fabulous session guitarist, just as far as guitars go, this guy has such an amazing dexterity and melodic sense, and he too saw the beauty of this song and recorded a version of it. And as I understand it, he continues to whip it out live. And this is 30 years later, 30-some years later. Cool version. It's real Steely Dan. It's sort of Steely Danny, as it were, right? Well, then, right around that same time in the 80s, Danny Gatton is playing it out live, right? And apparently, so too is Jeff Beck, wherever he was living in, the mid-80s. So both Danny Gatton and Jeff Beck, and I dare say Brian Setzer too, and maybe a young Joe Satriani. All these guys like this tune, as I do, right? And they decide to learn it, and they decide to take it out in front of people. And in some cases, these things crop up on records, okay? And what I see there is this cool arc, and I'm going to call it the post-Larry Carlton arc of the song, the instrumental Sleepwalk. Here's what happens, okay? Beck, of every guitarist that came out of the United Kingdom in the 1960s, for me, is the only one who avoided valleys, okay? He reached an apex of creativity as far back as the Yardbirds, the second incarnation of the Yardbirds, before Jimmy Page picked up a guitar and after Clapton split. Okay? Songs like Shapes of Things and other stuff that was on those first couple of records with the Yardbirds that Jeff Beck was involved with. He raised the bar as far as the bar could be raised by a white man in the United Kingdom, in Britain, okay? And he has never, ever come off of that tightrope ever since. In fact, I think he built a house on it. And he just has maintained a beautiful balance all through the remainder of his life as a stylist who never plays the same thing twice, okay? The only thing he repeats are beautiful songs. His performances always differ. And he's always done that, right? And during his short life, Danny Gatton's been gone for a real long time now. Him and Roy Buchanan both. There were two more men, both of these guys being Americans, who grew up right down there on that weird, awkward spot directly on the border of the doggone Civil War, okay? Between the Northern Masons and the Southern Masons. All of them very wealthy and very grabby, and it was just a total stew pot of music down there, probably beginning around 1700, okay? And these guys, for me, in the 80s, and as long as they lived, especially in the last 10 years of their lives or so, like Jeff Beck, they reached that peak and they stayed there, okay? And these guys had grown up hearing country and rock and roll and all kinds of hit songs. They'd worked with, some of them had worked with singers that could make you cry, and you're in the band, and the way they interpret their own songs just breaks your heart, and you've heard it 100 times. And you know, joy and sorrow and grief and pain, it never comes the same way. And these are the guitarists that took it to this place. Kind of, I'm going to credit Larry Carlton for putting a boot in a bunch of people's asses and saying, guys, you can make this yours. You can make this yours. And every one of these people, okay, every single one of them, after the Shadows, had heard what Jimi Hendrix did with Bob Dylan's folk acoustic version of All Along the Watchtower. Okay? A song can be remade in a way that is more iconic than its source. And there's a way to really honor somebody who's written a piece of music, is to love it so hard that it's almost as though you've adopted a child and you're giving it every bit of nurture and affection that you would give a child that you had conceived yourself. Okay? And Sleepwalk is that kind of song. It has really gone through a wonderful arc, okay? And very few boogers on that trail. Very few, okay? And you can see that all of these people that grew up listening to 50s and 60s music wanted to take certain things to the stratosphere. Now, I'm going to pause this because there are a few guitarists, really painterly modern guitarists, that I suspect have performed this song out in front of people, and it's just really hard to find. It's really hard to search up, but I'm pretty good at searching stuff up. So I'm going to pause this and see what else I can find. I don't want to have to make 2 videos. I want to grab a couple more clips if they're out there.